I
Well,
was
here's an
asleep.
interesting
Yeah,
thing.
that was the day I was sick.
Uh, the FlatHub version of OBS Studio is newer
Yeah.
than the repo version.
Well, that
Interesting.
comes as no surprise.
Is there a PPA?
I don't.
Yeah, no, no, you can get it. You can get it from the deb file. It's in the repos, so you can do it
You're
that
not
way if you
missing
wanted to.
anything really. The only reason I use the Flatpak version is because it comes with the embedded browser uh, source, which I need for the other shows, not for this show because we use a different tool over there. But to just capture a window, I was thinking about making a video, a tutorial, and putting it on our page just to
Yeah, that'd be good, man.
you know.
It's been a while since we've had a video.
And then the only
Video
other thing, yeah, you have to check every time to make sure that the audio is actually working the way that it's supposed to. That's it.
On our
Once you have the window set up, it should always be that window. The audio, however, will glitch, and you'll have to turn it off and turn it back on.
Yeah.
On OBS.
And again, does that make a difference if it's a flat pack or a snap or a dev? Okay.
None whatsoever.
I'm going to install Flatpak version.
The thing about OBS and the Flatpak is OBS actually that those developers are actually directly making the Flatpak, so that is a directly supported version of the software. But then again, the repo version is just fine. Okay. Pop out chat. All right, let's see. I need dark theme. We're running late. I know we are. Pop that out. Okay.
Who put the security privacy ones in?
I put
What
the
are
one
those
in.
ones? Yeah, that's it. So
Yeah.
is that yours then?
That's mine.
Okay. Oh,
Now, the other ones, did we want to split those up real quick? I see some not names next to them.
I put those so you guys could.
You want to do all of them? I mean, you don't have to do all of them.
Well, I mean, I could, but that leaves nothing for anyone else. I see Magid has a few. Joe.
The monthly news, Bill will be doing. I have okay. 2 articles. That's all I have. That's all I really found that was interesting to me.
Okay.
And I understand you might want to talk more about the Discord one.
Yeah,
and
I'll talk about them. That's
fine.
Bill
might want to do the AI one. Firefox announces AI controls.
Because that's my thing.
He likes to rant about that, so give him the opportunity.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hadn't heard.
I got it.
Hadn't heard.
And then App Manager offers drag and drop app image management.
Ooh, that looks quite cool, actually.
I mean, yeah, it does. So, you want to talk about that one? That's fine.
Yeah.
And I don't care about Sony, so.
Yeah, that'll be brief. I'll mention that in passing.
I want to rewrite the way we say that the show notes are on the website. Because
I meant to go in and rewrite a couple
of
things on there.
Because going to /show notes takes you to a page that I used to put a link on to each episode, and then I stopped doing that. There's a link going directly in each episode's show notes, as well as the show description on both YouTube and the RSS feed.
I just remembered something. Remember how we talked about last time about the new menu in Cinnamon and all this, and then London had reminded us that you could still have the old one, and we'd all completely forgotten about that. Should I mention something about that?
Yeah, but put that in. Put it in. Check this out, and either that or vibrations from the ether, since it came from Londoner. and just mention that it's a correction or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good because I'm using the classic menu that he mentioned after I played around with those other two.
I tried the new one. I just went back to Cinemenu because I feel like I can do more with that.
There are more
look
options.
A little bit better.
But if you want like the old one, like exactly the way it is, you need classic. Cinemenu is close, but there's a couple things that are a bit different. So but it does give you more flexibility.
Yeah. And the thing I don't like about the classic menu or the new menu is I can't put enough favorite stuff up on the menu at one time without it getting stretched out of proportion. Mm-hmm. But I suppose that's not everybody's workflow. Okay. I guess we must sound good because nobody's complaining. Anything else before we get started?
For some reason, I don't know, on my phone, I can't seem to add in anything on the notes. I'm not sure why. Maybe you could add my name to the articles I'm going to read. I don't know why it's like that.
I'll put it on.
I see that you're signed in
Why
on
are you trying to do it from your phone?
Yeah, I have it. What's that?
Why are you trying to do it from your phone?
Are you using
because...
Go ahead.
Because I close my browser because I have 150 tabs open in my browser, and while we're doing the show, I close everything. That the browser effectively is a lot. It takes up a lot of RAM. So
that's what a second browser is for.
Yeah. Well, this way I don't have my browser taxing my computer while we're doing the show. So, yeah, I use the phone because it's separate. I could just refer to it. All right, anyway, I'll figure that out
says we
later.
sound good on YouTube.
Okay.
All right, I'll put Londoner's comment in the vibrations from the ether.
You need to move. You need to choke up on your mic, Majid. There it is. It's over on the other side of the room. Now I got two things to take piss out of you with. All right. 3, 2. Welcome to mintCast, the podcast by the Linux Mint community for all users of Linux. This is episode 479, recorded on Sunday, February 15th, 2026.
Mostly stable. I'm Joe.
Hey, everyone. I'm Bill.
Being clever and pithy, I'm Majid.
Not uploading my ID, I'm Jim.
They already have it. First up in the news, Mint Monthly News, January 2026. In security and privacy, there's an SSH stalker. And finally, the feedback and a couple suggestions. Please remember, if you want to follow along with our discussions, the full show notes for this episode are linked in the show's description. That's true of YouTube as well as the RSS feed. First up, the news. Mint Monthly News, January 2026, from the Mint blog by Clem, edited by Londoner. Donations. Mint received donations from more than 1,000 people in December. This number of donors in a single month is unprecedented. A total of $47,312 was raised thanks to the generous contributions of 1,393 donors. In addition, Linux Mint is proudly supported by 2017 patrons for a sum of $4,900 per month. Clem sends his thanks to all of you, as do I. That is impressive for an open source project. Keyboard layouts and input methods.
Sorry, I'm just going to ask a question. Do all projects, or do many projects actually publish their kind of finances? I mean, obviously, you're not going to expect Canonical or Fedora because they're backed by companies.
I think they do show the donations, but just the donations. Obviously, they're not showing their other income, but I think most do.
I think Mint has been, as
It'd be
a
just interesting to
project, Linux Mint has been known for being, it's not that they're more transparent than anybody else, but I think they have a bit more of a discoverable sort of structure set up where they like talking about it more than others. I don't know. Maybe there's still that stigma out there where we don't like talking about money. I don't know. But it seems like it's always been easy to find out how much money is coming into Linux Mint. And it's always been impressive to me. This is impressive indeed, you know.
Yeah.
Whenever a project is this well funded, it makes me happy. Keyboard layouts and input methods. Work continues on improving input methods. The team is working on making it possible to set a specific keyboard layout when configuring an input method. Forums.
So this is interesting, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, butting in again. This is interesting actually because there was a couple of videos that delved a little bit into this specific thing. So the Mint apparently would, I mean, and to be fair, it seems a sensible policy. It would assume what your keyboard layout was based on the language that you'd selected at installation.
Yeah.
And as I said, that seems to be fair enough thing to do. There were some people who were using keyboards which basically were different to. I'm trying to think of the words to say this. You know, they basically had a QWERTY keyboard as an example, but it was actually an AZERTY, one, or it was it was a different language to the one that they wanted to select because they wanted to select a different one. And
well,
there was
it's
some kind
it's
of
language, but it's also
issue.
locale that it'll make assumptions based on.
Yeah.
And you have people living
Yeah.
in the UK that are using a US based keyboard, and if you don't set that up, I've never seen it, but I imagine that if you don't set that up manually, you'll end
Well,
up
that's
with
one
keys.
of the questions when you do the install is what type of keyboard are you using?
Right, but it'll make the assumption, and then if you want it changed, I mean, it'll show you what it assumed, and then you have to change it. I've never had to do
The problem I
it.
have is like I have a keyboard that it's got all the function keys and everything, but it also with a couple of clicks you can turn it into a Mac style keyboard. But I have to force the module to make it see it as a Windows keyboard so that I have the function keys. So there's a command that I have to run every time. Well, I set it up in RC Local so that it runs it. I'm sure that there's another way to do it so that it automatically does that. But it constantly defaults back to the Mac style keyboard unless I go in and set some things up. And that's really annoying when I don't have, function keys.
Yeah, so I think that's part of the thing, that there are people who may have one machine, but might have either multiple keyboards or have keyboards in one layout, but they actually want to type in another way. This is not, it's not something an issue for me, but I remember some time ago I bought a Bluetooth keyboard for an Android tablet, and I obviously wasn't looking very well, I wasn't paying attention, and the one that came was a German one. So now it was relatively easy for me to tell the tablet, that this is actually a UK one when it's not. It was a German one. But then obviously what would then happen is that because with keyboard, it's not just the letters, is it? It's all the kind of special characters. Everything changes. And so in the end I just had it didn't work for me. But apparently there are people that do actually live like that, with a keyboard that says one thing but they want it to say something else, and that was something that wasn't as easy to do previously. And now these changes that they're talking about, that's what they're referring to when they're saying specific keyboard layout configuring an input method. It's to
No,
give you that
for a while I was using
ability.
a Japanese keyboard, which also had all the English lettering on it and everything like that. The only nice thing about it was, some of the keys I did have to remap, but there was also a bunch of extra keys that I could map to special functions, which is the reason I had it. So I guess that would make things easier. God, I'm a nerd.
Yeah.
You come to the right
nerd.
place.
You nerd.
Oh, okay. Then it goes on. Forums. Clem apologizes for the recent problems experienced when trying to access the forums. A high volume of traffic is received, mostly coming from AIs, bots, scripts, and web crawlers. It got to the point where the server couldn't cope and people weren't able to use the forums. Mitigation methods have been installed and the server upgraded to give it 10 times the CPU capacity and twice the bandwidth. It sucks that we got to take measures like that, honestly, but I guess that's the world we live in. Users and account details. In the next release, the administration tool named mintSysAdm, MintSysAdm, will handle user administrations and account details in additions where the desktop tools can be hidden. User management in mintSysAdmin focuses on the most common tasks. Once a user is set up, that user can set up a password and finalize the account without admin intervention. Home directory encryption, which until now was only supported during the OS installation, will be fully supported during the creation of new user accounts. That's not something I've ever considered. Webcams will be fully supported when taking selfies, i.e., you can see yourself before taking the photo and decide whether to mirror the webcam or not. Avatars will have full high DPI support and look crisp on modern hardware. Cinnamon Screensaver and Wayland. The current Cinnamon Screensaver only works in X11. One of the goals for the next Linux Mint release is to implement a new screensaver which will replace the existing one, work on both Wayland and X11, be natively rendered by Cinnamon's window manager and or compositor. Wayland support so far has been experimental, and I quote, once all the pieces are in place, Mint can support it and start testing it as a potential solution. The team know there are pros and cons to X11 and Wayland, and they want to support both. Supporting Wayland doesn't mean they'll start using it by default, but it makes it a possibility. As always, they'll end up using what works best for most users. And that's, that is that feels like a different way of thinking.
Wayland eventually.
That's what everybody else thinks, yeah. And my brain went there as I was reading it, but then you have to remember the reason Mint occupies the space it does. Above all else, it has to just work. It has to keep doing the things that its users are expecting it to be able to do, because the minute that doesn't work, then people go and try something else.
It's like 32-bit, there are still some distros out there that support 32-bit. It's just less and less and less and less.
Slackware.
And eventually the same thing is going to happen with X11 as, more distros turn towards Wayland. So
it's going to be
X11 will eventually be out of support.
Yeah, I agree. But the more difficultly, the biggest difficulty is going to be with people who are trying to support both at the same time. As the XFCE developers are finding out, they've found that it is impossible to support both with the same tools. It's either you've got to write one tool to support the X11, another tool to support the Wayland, and then provide equal support to both tools, or you've got to draw a line in the sand and say this is where we're going to just support the new thing moving forward. But I think Mint as a distribution has to be able to we have to be able to make it just work. Now, does that necessarily mean that Cinnamon has to work for everybody? No, because you do still have XFCE as an option with Mint.
Even XFCE is going towards Wayland. I'm sure I saw
It
that
is.
in the news.
It is, and that's what I was talking about a minute ago. I mean, they've realized that XFWM4 will not do both Wayland and X11, so they've got to move on to something new. And now they're doing XFWL4. God's sake, whatever you do, don't go to version 5. That would just make the whole thing fall over. But yeah, it's one of those things where they might find that trying to make both of them work and support them both in equal measure is, I don't know, that might end up being a fool's errand. So, I don't know. Time will tell.
It's just, it's just the way of the world, isn't it? New
Yeah.
stuff is coming. New stuff is going to be coming. I personally don't know. I don't have any ideological thing one way or the other because I don't know enough about display managers and stuff like that. So as far as I'm concerned, it's just, it's like the 32-bit thing. It's like, at some point you do have to just kind of say, it's been 15 years since people regularly used 32-bit. It's just time for some technology to die.
Yeah.
And support, because support takes resources, and I mean that's actually it keeps going, doesn't it? When you start, I'll let you say, but you have to. It's not just a case of support; it's the ongoing maintenance that you have to do.
I've had less enthusiasm about Wayland than I have with other things, just because it's just not been. Yeah, I get that it's as a concept, it's more secure in that applications can't see what each other's doing and stuff like that. But I mean, don't do dumb stuff
Can I ask
when
the
you're
question?
using your. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say. So let's turn it around the other way around. What is the problem with Wayland? Because some people seem to have an issue with it. I don't understand. And as I said, it might just be because I don't have enough technical understanding. But I just don't understand what the big problem is.
It's that every application that is drawing I mean, this is just an oversimplified way of describing this. Every single thing that's drawn on your screen is an island unto itself. And these applications that are used to being able to talk to each other and interact and share information back and forth in an easy way are no longer able to do that. So it's back to the drawing board for like OBS Studio. I have to, in order to capture a screen with OBS Studio and ship it off to YouTube, OBS has to have permission to see that screen. And with Wayland, that's not as straightforward of a concept. It has to have permission to see another application screen. It's not just as simple as, well, they're both running on the same machine. They can both, yeah, and Lemon Zest in the comments says it's Portals. And Portals is like a third technology that's come along to offer like a halfway house solution between two applications that need to see each other. Wayland as a security, in favor of security, has made it to where applications cannot see what each other's doing. You can see how that would be useful, especially with web browsers and web pages being code in and of themselves, and something nefarious could see what everything that you're doing on screen. That Wayland kind of fixes that. But in fixing the security, you add more complication. Portals, XDG web portals or XDG desktop portals, was the technology that come along that has offered kind of an API layer between. But the software has to be written or updated and patched to be able to use this secondary or tertiary sort of protocol to be able to interact with other stuff going on the screen. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but that's kind of...
No, it does, but again, it sounds like it's just the march of progress.
It
isn't
is,
it?
but it also it forces
at a certain
everybody
point,
to remake their stuff. It forces everybody to patch their software.
Okay, and I can understand that, at the end of the day, these are open source projects, and there may not necessarily be a team of people getting paid to do this stuff. Sometimes with a lot of projects, it is volunteers and stuff like that. I do kind of get that. It doesn't. Maybe it's because I don't understand the coding side of it that I'm not appreciating the big deal about it. Maybe if I had to redo something, maybe I'd kind of go, oh crap, oh yeah, this is actually quite a big change.
When you got people
But
that are
then again, it's been
relying
going on
on,
for 50. It's been going on for. It's
yeah,
been going
but
on
it's
for
been
15
going
years, hasn't
on,
it?
but we've also had a good way to avoid it for 15 years. Just use Mint, and you can avoid all of this crap. That's just
Well,
that's both
and
good and bad.
how many different distros tried to do the whole switch to Wayland thing when
Then
Wayland first
switch
started
back,
out,
and
and then switched right back in the next release? Yeah.
so it's like it being that we're Linux and we can do whatever we want because it's open source. There's no, there might be incentive, but there's not imperative. So.
Okay.
So it just kind of drags on. Now I'll say we're closer than we've ever been before, but I think in 10 years we'll still be having a conversation about something going on with X11, or somebody out there still using X11 because they can't. They've got some kind of something they're using that they just refuse to try anything else. I have no doubt that's true.
I think we have
I know for
time.
the longest time. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Joe.
No,
Well, I was going to
for the
say, I think we have
longest
time. We're speaking over each other again.
Go ahead.
Yes, on Mint, I think we have time for this to be forced upon us. It's not that interesting a discussion to me, because if you're a typical, desktop user, it's really a more behind the scenes kind of thing. And
is.
at some point, your distro it's going to be forced on you. And I think it's going to kind of function like eventually, if you're still one of the people running a 32-bit distro, now you have just a few choices left 15 years to 20 years down the line, and it'll be like that if you're one of the last holdouts 5 or 10 years from now and you insist on having X11 for some reason. You may have a choice of only a few specific distros, and you'll have to make that choice to go there just to keep up with it. But the rest of us, we will just go along with it when everything's been worked out, and it becomes standard.
And the good news
I know,
about go ahead, Joe. This
like
time.
a lot of the reason that I wasn't switching, and I know it was an issue for a long time, had to do with screen sharing on Wayland, which just plain didn't work. So a lot of the screen sharing applications, or the being able to stream a desktop, you just couldn't do. And I assume it's gotten better. I just haven't really looked into it because I'm still using X on just about everything.
Most of the distros that I'm on, not because I've got some ideological thing for it, but they just seem to be on Wayland. And I'm in any of the things that I do, apart from the Mint install, everything else is some kind of Wayland. Do you know what I mean? Whether it's Ubuntu, Fedora, Kubuntu, Pop OS, whatever other distros I've used recently, and so I've never noticed any problem personally.
I've not either.
You could argue I've not noticed any great benefit, but then that's just again because I'm not technically literate in the code side of it.
I will say this is the only machine.
Take of that as you wish.
This is the only machine I have that is still on X11 because it's running Mint Cinnamon. The others are KDE Plasma, up-to-date versions of KDE Plasma and GNOME. And in the comments, they're saying GNOME 50 is Wayland only, and that makes sense.
Yeah.
That GNOME would take a stance like that.
Yeah.
Honestly.
But
But
I was going to get to that actually because it's one of the other news aspects, isn't it?
Right.
We better continue. Actually, we've been getting a bit
Yeah.
because there's one other bit, wasn't there?
Cinnamon Screensaver and Wayland. The current Cinnamon oh no, I already did that one, didn't I? Longer development cycle
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
With a release every 6 months plus LMDE, the team spends more time testing, fixing, and releasing than developing. They're thinking about changing that and adopting a longer development cycle. As it happens, the next release will be based on the new LTS, and they just ran out of code names. Ooh. Stay
Wow, I
tuned.
mean,
There
they've
will
hit
be
Z, innit?
stay tuned. There will be more information on this. Obviously, the codename strategy doesn't matter much, but the team are very interested in adopting a longer development cycle. Now, I wouldn't mind seeing that, honestly. I don't see why we can't just
Yeah,
release
Yeah,
with
I was
that's not
the...
thinking
gonna
about
matter.
that as well.
No. In fact, the I'm not going to say silly, but I've often thought that the major releases, or what they consider the major releases, that were not like the big release that goes along with the big LTS release, were all things that probably could have came down as a regular update, and they'll push some things that are a little bit that are
So there was an interesting discussion about this on who was it? My Linux Experiment, Nick on My Linux Experiment.
yeah.
Because it was interesting. Because so what he said was, at the moment, Mint has this 6 monthly, as in new releases. 21, then 21.1, 21.2, 20, etc. Okay, fine. And you have it's very incremental because it's all based on the LTS that the the original version was on. So 22 is based on 2404, etc. We all know that, right? Now, what this basically means is that you'll end up with 4 pretty similar incremental releases that you've had to put development time into and everything like that. By which time the 4th one is pretty out of date. Hence, they used to have Edge ISOs and things like that before. And then you then move to another one, which is completely different because now you've got a new LTS base. So all of this is just adding extra work to you. And so ironically, by Mint talks about a lot about how it's incremental updates. We don't want to have massive changes. We want to keep the traditional desktop paradigm, all of which is 100%. I'm on board with all of that. But it means that every 2 years they have to go through this massive change, which is obviously going to take a lot of development time and work, etc. I've always personally thought that this 6 monthly release schedule that we have is just a hangover from when it was more tightly bound with the Ubuntu release. And each of the point releases would be based on the interim release that's come before. So there'd be there'd be one on 1610, there would have been one on 1704, it would have been one on 1710, even though none of those were LTSs. So I agree with you, Bill. This is a very long-winded, Majid way of saying I agree with you. I think going to maybe a yearly development cycle with other updates just being pushed as and when, security or application updates, that would mean that when they do have to do the big changes, they've got more time to do it. They've got a full year almost, right? And at the same time, it decreases the number of different versions they have to support. And if you've not got a deadline for the next packages have to be ready for this date because then this is going to come out on that date or whatever, that again makes your development time easier. So I think that this would actually be a really positive thing to do, maybe because the only way they would go is they'd go yearly. 2 yearly is a bit too much. I think yearly makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't bother me. I know that. Well, I don't know. I would assume that a lot of the reason for the incremental larger updates was to drum up a little hype, I guess, but it wouldn't bother me just to see it, align itself with the point release. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, as I said, I think it's just a hangover. I think it's just a thing of nobody really thought about, okay, about why. It just seems like, oh, this is what we've always done, so we're just going to keep
Yeah.
doing it. And now it's like, actually, let's take a step back. Do we actually need to keep doing it? Well, no, not really. You
No.
know.
Because it's not, I mean, it's
So
not the reason people use Mint. I think people use Mint because, I mean, it's just a good desktop distro that you can count on to always work. And, you know, we don't get as excited about the shiny new stuff. We couldn't, could we? I mean, anybody that uses
Well, I mean,
anything,
I do, but I've got other distros for that.
yeah,
It's not, I'm not looking for the new and the shiny on Mint. I'm looking for the new and shiny somewhere else.
right. And I'm certainly not interested in it on this machine that I need to be able to fire up and know that I'm going to be able to stream mintCast off to YouTube. I cannot be worried about what's new and shiny on a machine that needs to work that well, you know. Not that the other distros wouldn't be as reliable, but I just don't. You've got a much larger attack surface on a distro like that. So,
What do you two guys think, by the way, about the whole long development cycle? Joe, Jim.
well, that about
Joe's
sums it
eating,
up.
so I
don't
will
think-
I will answer because Joe's chewing. I will say this. For me, the development cycle should be synced with Ubuntu because to me that is the main difference. Like that I've noticed when I upgraded from 21.3 to 22.1, and that was a different Ubuntu base. That's when I had to go update all my PPAs. You know, that made a huge difference. To me, Mint cycle really the meaningful part of it, the major point, not the little point releases, but the integer increase, that should be synced to Ubuntu because that's what makes the difference in how it works. The little point releases are no big deal. They're minor updates, and
Do you mean
your software.
Do you mean the LTSs? Do you mean the LTSs or the
Yeah,
interim releases? So like 2510 or 2410, for example. Those are the interim releases that Ubuntu. Do you mean basing on that, or just sticking with the LTS that's like 2404 or 2204 or what will be coming now 2604? What do you? I'm not entirely sure which one you mean.
Well, as far as Mint, when it increases by an integer, that's the main difference. Those are the ones that are synced with Ubuntu, right? When we went from Ubuntu 22.04 to 24.04, when Mint went from 21 to 22. To me, that's the real meaningful difference.
Yeah.
So what Ubuntu does with their point releases in between, I don't care about. The LTS is what Mint relies on. So
Keep
Yeah, no,
our
I
major
agree with you.
release in line with the LTSs of Ubuntu, basically, and push
Yes.
push the little point releases. It seems like I could be wrong. I'm not a developer, but it seems like most of what we see with those point releases could come down as regular updates, a little by little, because we do have our own repos in addition.
I just be careful about calling them point releases because there is LTS point releases as well. Isn't
Well, I
there?
mean the
There's
Mint point releases. I don't.
24.04.2.
Yeah.
Mint point
Yeah.
releases, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So
Right, I'm
Okay.
fine with them taking more time between their major
Yeah.
releases. I mean, it actually makes sense to me to do it yearly instead of bi-yearly. But mostly the only reason I even upgrade is because we talk about it on the show.
That's it.
Otherwise, I would ignore it until I had to.
yeah.
So
That's, I guess, if they're looking for an opinion, that's ours.
Yeah, that's fine.
Watch this space, I suppose. Okay, so that is it for the Mint Monthly News. That was actually kind of long-winded, or maybe we made it long-winded, or a combination of both. But anyway, Jim, you've got one about Discord.
Yeah, this has been in the news. Everybody in the tech space, the Linux space, and even general computer users, video gamers, everybody's been talking about this. We do this show via Discord, and it's of great interest to us as well. So, according to Discord.com, their press release, February 9th, which made international news, they discussed that Discord launches teen by default settings globally. Now, a lot of people only read the headline and flipped out, said they're deleting Discord or canceling their Nitro subscription and things like that. But what this lengthy press release tells us is, most people are not going to have to confirm their age via a face scan or uploading their ID, only if they're accessing age-gated spaces. So an age-gated or so-called adult spaces doesn't mean pornography. It means anything that is over 18. I think certain mature topics or things like that are included in that. So many Discord servers will not be affected at all. Some may choose to delete or not use their so-called adult spaces. And others, hopefully for many of us, this will not matter. We won't have to do anything. That's my hope, is that it will be irrelevant. We will not have to do anything, and we will continue on. But there is some concern that, some people or many people may indeed be forced to either do a face scan or upload their ID. And they give a lot of information in this press release about how it's safe and, they're not identifying you and this and that. But many people are rightfully suspicious of it. And I could assure you that I myself will not be uploading my ID. I'm hoping this doesn't affect us and the whole thing just becomes mute. We can continue on with Discord as we do here for this show and our community and the other Linux communities I take part in, and the other communities have nothing to do with tech space, video games or whatever, and we could all just continue on.
I can promise
the
you that
other hand,
I'm not uploading my ID to Discord. But I do understand that this is it's something that it is being pushed ahead by changing laws in various countries.
Yeah, I was going to say that because Discord comes under social media for a lot of these jurisdictions, which have now put in social media limits. So the one I can think of top of my head is Australia, and I think even the UK have some. There's something going through at the minute. I don't think it's not law yet, but it's it's been around, and I think it's because of the fact that Discord comes under the social media bracket that these kind of age verification things have started coming up. I mean, I agree with everybody here. I'm not getting my face scanned and I'm not giving my ID. If that means I have to go off Discord, I'll go off Discord.
Have you had to do anything yet? You're in the UK. Have you had to do anything yet?
No. The only thing that I know, and I don't know this because I used it, but I heard about it on the news, is that if you want to access certain pornography websites, you can't.
You need a VPN?
You need a credit card, and everybody else uses a VPN instead.
Mm-hmm. And that's the case here. Many states in the U.S. have the same situation,
Yeah, so as I said, I don't have any personal experience, but this is what I'm told.
No, me neither.
Yeah, Texas says you can't access porn sites unless you have a credit card with that place, and that it's the porn sites that are supposed to be enforcing that. But I think the only one that does is the only one that pays attention to that specifically is Pornhub. So
yeah, because they don't want no smoke.
Oh no, because I think it's because they think the laws are hilarious.
Yeah, because they completely. I think, okay. For anybody that knows how this stuff really works, I think there's an understanding that there's no reasonable way to, unless you're going to go and cut the wires leading out of every single jurisdiction physically, there's no way to actually keep people in line. It's kind of like putting a plastic padlock on something. It'll keep the honest
Right.
people straight, but for those who know how to install private internet access or NordVPN, and then or something free for that matter, something built into a web browser, these
Proton.
anything, you're going to be able to circumvent any of these limitations they put in place so easily. But I'm with everybody else. I'm not I'm not uploading a single identifying piece of anything to a social media platform, period.
Now hold on there, because the face scan I don't have too much of a problem with. Most specifically because I'm all over YouTube, much like you guys, right now, and Discord, right now. So my face is already on there from
but
like every freaking angle. So
it would be more difficult to like suss out anything usable from our YouTube. I don't know. I think I just want to minimize the attack surfaces, I suppose, because the more information that's out there, the more discernible information that's out there, the more things can be put together.
Do you have face unlock on your phone?
I don't use it. I just use the thumbprint thing. So, because I missed the button at the bottom.
Oh, they got you.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Google's
it's the
got
only
your
way.
info.
It's the only way to make the bank apps work without having to type in a password, and I can't do that when I'm going down the
Bunch
road.
of applications.
But on the other hand, if this goes through, it might be enough to push us off to a free and open source platform that we should be arguably using anyway, given the space that we occupy. But
I think
it's interesting actually. There was a go ahead, Joe.
Most of us have tried a lot of the open source solutions, and honestly, they're not as good.
They're not as easy.
They're not as robust.
They're not as put together in a way that just click and run. Although arguably, I don't know, Three Fat Truckers still uses Video Ninja to make the shows, and we've never had a single problem with any one of those applications.
We could go back to using Video Ninja. I never had a problem with Video Ninja. I think it was a couple of browsers that people were using that was causing problems with Video Ninja.
I think you're right. That and less than perfect internet connection too. But yeah, that's the thing about something like Discord, isn't it? We use it because it's easy. It is arguably robust. It's probably, I'm sorry to say it, but it's my favorite platform out there just because of the versatility of it and all the things that it will do.
The way it's organized and its server formats and presented and easy to go through, and you can mute whichever server you don't want to pay attention to but still be able to go back to it.
Yeah.
It's enjoyable using Discord, more so than something like Matrix,
or for
So
God help me,
apparently,
Telegram.
There are certain, I was going to say, there's certain EU countries that are now moving over to Matrix. Apparently, maybe not for all of their communications, but for some of them. And I think Estonia, one of the EU countries, which is going over to it. I've never used Matrix, so I have no idea.
I've installed it. I've looked at it. I need to give it more attention.
I use it regularly. I do use it regularly. But, the more countries and things like that switch over to Matrix, I'm sure the more development that it'll get and the more that it will improve. So hopefully improvements are coming.
I think.
Yeah, I look at it like there's three outcomes. Number one, this won't affect us because of the blowback they've received. Right. They're not going to enforce this on many communities except for some very specific ones. So we won't be affected. We can all just keep using Discord because we all agree, I certainly do, that it's by far the best platform of its type. So we'll just continue on and this will all blow over. That's not option one. Option two is, we could all just refuse to upload ID or buy a face mask on Amazon or eBay and put a different face up there. It seems a little clunky how that's going to work.
Oh, man, I saw some videos about like people drawing a face on their thumb and then like using that.
Right.
Oh,
There's ways around it.
the tomfoolery that will go into effect when you make people do stuff like that.
I'm going to get a JFK mask.
Right.
Oh,
Silly stuff like that probably will work. And then option three, like you said, if we're really pushed, if the hammer really comes down, then there are other video streaming platforms we could use, and there are other chat platforms we could use. So, yeah, we have options.
we're just laziness is king, I suppose. Next up, Firefox.
What works.
Yeah, Firefox announces AI controls to block its upcoming AI features. So, a little bit of AI
I'll block it the easy way.
So far, okay, I'll start by saying this. When it comes to AI features in Firefox, one thing I will say is that it is very easily avoided. Now, it's also, every time you right-click something, you've got to ask AI chatbot. Big deal. If you're offended by that, I suppose, I assume there's a way to disable that in About Config. I'm not sure. But, so these AI controls to block its upcoming AI features, and the article we're sort of discussing here is from Slashdot, and it says, listening to our community alongside our ongoing commitment to offer choice led us to build AI controls. Starting with Firefox 148, which rolls out on February 24th, you'll find a new AI controls section with the desktop browser settings. Okay, so what they're doing is bringing these settings to the forefront. I think that was inevitable. It provides a single place to block current and future generative AI features in Firefox. This lets you use Firefox without AI while we continue to build AI features for those who want them. Okay, show of hands. Who even wants to see the word AI in the settings menu? Because I know that's what people are going to complain. Well, I still see it when I open up settings. So you're going to have to put something in about config.
The irony about all of this AI stuff is that actually some of it is really useful. It's just the way that it's being thrown down our throats. Do you know what I mean? And I think Firefox is, if it's an option that you can enable or disable, that's fine. And if that means it has to have a settings bit on the settings page, then fine. I'm not going to get too... The issue is when it's being used surreptitiously. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm nowhere near as obstinate about this as perhaps I should be, because I am an avid user of Duck AI, which is your most anonymizing way of using any AI tools, period.
That's through DuckDuckGo or what?
It is. And it gives you a choice between basically all of the more popular language models, including Claude, Llama, and there's like 2 or 3 open source ones that you have the ability to use, and then you've got the GPT 5.1, which is the one.
Now, I would still prefer that this was opt-in as opposed to opt-out, but yeah, as long as the option is there, I guess.
I think people are going to get irritated just seeing it in the settings, and that's a little bit silly, but I foresee it right now. Like, you're going to have to either put up with people complaining about that, or you're going to have to give us a way to just completely remove it, nuke it off the face of the earth, or give us the ability to compile it without any of that stuff. But I don't know if that would be favorable or not. Honestly, it does not bother me as much as it does some people. I'm not.
Yeah.
I
There are
know.
some people who are really, really ideologically opposed to AI in every single shape or form. And I've got to an age now where I've learned that you should never throw the baby out with the bathwater. Just because there are some very, very dodgy things around AI doesn't mean that we should all be completely getting rid of it or that we shouldn't be looking into it. As I said, it's the way that it's been shoehorned into everything, the way that there's been ridiculous amounts of money being put in, the way that everybody is jumping on the bandwagon, and now it's having real world effects in the sense of component shortages and all sorts of things. Do you know what I mean? That's the thing.
Yeah, and I agree with you entirely. But the whole thing is if you want to work in tech, I mean, right now there's not a whole lot of choice. It's AI everything, so you have to at least be willing to work with it to some extent.
Yeah.
If you want to stay in tech.
Either make it or use AI tools to make whatever you're making. But giving us the option to shut it off. Thank you for that.
You either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
Right on.
Another classic quote from Batman.
Okay, so we beat that to death. Let's move on. You got one here, Jim?
Yes, I've talked about how I use some app images, and I've talked about a couple of the other available apps. The one I use is called App Image Launcher, a beta, and then there's another one called Gear Lever, which is a flat pack. But there's another one that's available now, according to itsfoss.com. It's called App Manager. And it is yet another option for those of you who might want to use app images on your system to integrate them into your menu easily. And it talks a little bit about app images, and some key features include something that some of the other ones don't have: optional automatic updates, smart install modes, and desktop integration, which is sort of one of the key things that these all have. So they have several different available options for downloads to install this app. But what it can do is it makes your app images easy to manage, possibly even able to update. You can source some of them through this app. And I haven't tried it myself because I'm happy with App Image Launcher, but this is yet another way that you can use app images. Since I don't like flat packs or snaps, I find these, so-called sort of portable, self-contained documents, applications are easy to integrate into your system if you don't want to have to, double click on them in your file manager.
And the cool thing about this one, in contrast to Gear Lever, because Gear Lever is a fantastic tool for doing a lot of those same things. The weird thing is, Gear Lever is a flat pack, and then this application is made to manage app images. So it's what? It's clearly made by somebody.
It's kind of like packaging format inception, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, whereas this...
all we'd need is a snap of it.
Yeah, and
That's
App
why
Manager
I use App Image.
App Manager is an app image, yeah. Cool.
And I think there's also some other formats as well.
So can you use App Manager to manage App Manager? Moving swiftly on.
I don't know.
Oh.
Do you guys use any app images?
Yeah.
Or
and I use
me?
Gear Lever to manage them.
Okay.
Yeah. There was one that I used to use. There was one or two that I used to use, and then, but it was never a large number, and Yeah, so I mean, it's not a big part of my workflow, but it's good to know that there is a way of, because I think that was one of the issues, wasn't it, about how you integrate into your system, or not integrate into your system, how you use them within your system. So
It
it's good that these projects exist.
it is the like directly supported method of getting up to date versions of Audacity, right? Because the Flatpak is actually not. That's one of those. I don't want to say unsupported flat packs, but it's one of those flat packs. It's not. It doesn't have the.
Okay, Bill, we are not going to have you going down on an
No,
Audacity
okay. I'll
rabbit hole
just
for
say
the
that
next 20 minutes.
there is a branch you can get app images right now for Audacity 4, the next major release that's been talked about for years. You can actually get app images of it now, where it's like a Qt based version. That being said, it doesn't work very well, but every time there's a update, you can basically follow the nightly, such as it is, sort of progress of the project with it. And that's the only one I'm using right now. I was using it for the Nextcloud, because that's another one that's directly supported, is the Nextcloud desktop application to keep like your Nextcloud stuff backed up to your local file system on your machine. That comes as a app image, but again, I just
Really,
got.
that's a bit surprising.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know. I use the Flatpak because it's kept up to date too, but again, it's not a verified Flatpak. It's made by somebody else, but it's just become easier to bring those updates across with all of my Mint updates. I just couldn't be bothered to go and download, because that's the thing about app images. Without a tool like this, you got to go and download it, and then you got to go mark it as you got to mark it as executable, but that can all be managed with a piece of software like this. The only thing that can't be managed is when you have a piece of software that is started automatically with the operating system at runtime. It has to point at that executable file, and every time you do the update, it's going to change by 1 or 2 integers, whatever. And I can't be bothered to go in and fix that, so I just use the Flatpak version of it. But other than that, app images have always reminded me of on Windows, you used to have this concept, and I think you still do to some degree. You had this concept of portable applications that came in sort of a archive format with everything it needed in order to run right there in that file, and it didn't need to install on the system. It just basically ran from wherever you had it sitting. That's what app images kind of always reminded me of.
Yeah, that's the same reason I like them as well.
Right. So, you got the next one too, it looks like.
Yeah, this is a little bit of a niche topic once I read it, but Sony will ship its final Blu-ray recorders this month. The key word here is recorders. This is from slashdot.org. What this means is, for those people, apparently in Japan, these are very popular items still, not so much in America, Blu-ray drives where you can record onto blank Blu-ray discs. I have some. I used to use them in the past to burn data on and snail mail or priority mail or FedEx them to people. But that's who this is affecting. There still are companies that make Blu-ray players. There are still companies making some Blu-ray media. There are still movie studios putting out movies as commercial Blu-ray products you could buy. So this does not affect those, but I thought I'd include it anyway. This is really for the sort of the last hurrah, the last stock of the Blu-ray recorders. If you want to burn your own, Sony is out of that business. They announced it a while ago, but they're basically just telling you that's it. We're out of stock, and you'll have to You go to a different manufacturer if that's something you want to do.
There was a time frame where I was very interested in getting like a Blu-ray rewritable drive in one of my computers, just because of the volume of data that you can store on a Blu-ray disc versus, a DVD was its next closest one at the time, and it was almost like what, a multiple of 10.
Oh
Like
yeah.
there was 10 times as much data or more that you could put onto a Blu-ray. But the problem always
Right.
got to be that the Blu-ray drives and the Blu-ray discs were just prohibitively expensive. And then by the time they started coming down in price, hard drives had gotten large enough and cheap enough that, I didn't really need to worry about it anymore. So
That was the
I'm not
thing.
really worried about this.
I was doing a lot of when the DVDs were a bit more prevalent. I was doing a lot more writing of DVDs. I did have one DVD recorder, which let's first outline the fact that we're not talking about burning a file onto a disc. We're talking this article is talking about recording directly, like using a Blu-ray disc as a DVR, basically. You can still, but I think the thing about being able to burn on a Blu-ray, that kind of came along about the same time as larger hard drives, and then you had a lot of these like very robust media storage and consumption technologies like Kodi and the whatnot. It's more practical to just put your viewable Linux ISOs on a hard drive and then access it with something like Kodi or Jellyfish or even Plex or something like that, or whatever. Or just put it in a Samba share and use VLC. You've got a lot easier, versatile options to work with, and I think all that kind of came around about the same time, because I remember burning so many DVDs when that was a thing, and then about the time Blu-ray came out, it seemed like the preferred method sort of shifted to more of a server client point click watch sort of thing, at least for me.
Up until 2 or 3 years ago, I still had a bunch of burned DVDs that I was using as backups for my movie and television show collection. So that was my secondary backup system. But it just, in the end, it just takes up so much space comparatively, and it was actually cheaper and more stable to go with hard drives.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
Okay, looks like I am up next. All right, the memory crisis is taking no prisoners. Now, this is talking about, the expense of things going up. So the memory crisis is taking no prisoners as router industry is also impacted. Set-top boxes DRAM has become 7 times more expensive. And around 20% of low to mid routers' bill of materials accounts for DRAM costs, while just a year ago, that figure was 3%. So yeah, 3% of the cost of routers used to be the RAM. Now 20% of the cost of routers is the RAM. So like a 7x jump right there. And it's slowly affecting the rest of the market. So if you're looking to buy a router or something, now is probably the time, or a set-top box. Now is the time, because prices are just going to get worse. And I understand it is the whole AI thing, and they've pre-sold all of this RAM and everything like that. It's just, it's going to affect both RAM and NAND flash prices, and I don't see it getting better this year. So even like smartphones have been heavily impacted by this, and the cost is just going to keep
Right,
going
because data centers are running on DDR4 RAM. Yeah, I'm not buying it. I think it's another excuse to money grab.
No, hold on. You got to think about this. All these data centers running on DDR5 RAM, all this DDR5 RAM being rerouted to various places, that forces the price of DDR5 to go up. So consumers start looking for things like DDR4 RAM and purchasing it. And as they purchase it, and less becomes available because less companies are making it, because a lot of companies stopped making DDR4 in favor of DDR5, the price of DDR4 is also going to go up. So it will affect the entire market.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense on paper. I'll tell you what's not gone up is DDR3, and my last 3 machines that I've built have been with DDR3, and
I'm trying to think of a machine that I own that actually runs DDR3.
all of these 2 of these servers behind me run it, and all of those think centers that I bought, that's all running DDR3, and it runs plenty well enough on Linux. So, and I can build, with the parts, I can build probably 5 machines that use DDR3 for the money it costs to build one machine with 4 or 5. So it's that big of a difference. In fact, DDR3 RAM, especially for servers, DDR3 has not gone up in price at all. It continues to drop as time goes on. So, for anybody that's considering building a machine to just run Linux on, you don't have, really super high demands for it. Consider, you get the boards for $20 or better, and the RAM, you can get 32 gigs of this stuff for less than $20-30. So yeah.
Yeah, time to pull out that old AMD Phenom 2.
You're okay. No, you can get like 4th gen i7 or i5, and they've got 8 cores and 3.5 gigahertz. Still, perhaps not as not as well optimized power wise. I'll give you that.
And generally, they're going to be smaller capacity.
It just depends on what you want to do.
Are there 16 gigabyte sticks of DDR3?
No, because most machines will they'll only address 32 gigs, as far as I know. But I'm not real sure, to be honest with you. But that's just what I've been doing, because it's become, getting a hold of DDR4 and 5 has just become a fool's game. I do have some, though, in a drawer over there. I'm thinking about putting them on my eBay page and see if I can get rich. We'll see how that goes.
Give it another 6 months. Give it another 6 months. It'll be worth its weight in gold.
Yeah.
Well, I was making this joke about whether we're going to start taking sticks of RAM out of our machines and selling them.
Yeah.
It'll
be the catalytic converters of the tech white trash. Oh, moving on. Who's next? Majid.
So, mine, yes. So, this I found this interesting. So, Raspberry Pi goes dual RAM. So, this kind of follows on a little bit from the previous discussion. So, this is on OMG Ubuntu, where a new version of the Raspberry Pi Raspberry Pi 4 Model B has been quietly introduced, and the key difference, it uses a dual RAM configuration. And in the release, the foundation say, to improve supply chain flexibility and in manufacturing efficiency as per company product change notes documents. So basically, in the past, there was a single RAM chip, which was DDR4. And now there's going to be a dual RAM setup. I'm assuming it's still DDR4. But it doesn't actually say specifically.
It does. It says LPDDR4. The new revision adds a second LPDDR4 chip to the underside with a couple of them, because it's just dual channel, basically, is what they're changing the board to.
Yeah. Yeah. The one thing that you have to be aware is that older firmware, which is included on pre-existing images like Ubuntu's, won't see the RAM on the new board, but you can just flash the latest Raspberry Pi OS to an SD card and run it through. So I just thought that it was interesting that it's even got down to affecting the way that people are constructing their hardware.
Yeah.
Well, no, I find this interesting too. I have to. I'm gonna have to look up some benchmarks and just see how much quicker that runs with, dual RAM instead of single RAM.
Yeah, yeah, because I think, am I right in saying in general dual channel will work quicker?
Oh yes.
Well, I
Because I
mean,
remember that being an issue on a complete other end of the spectrum, I suppose. I remember that was one of the things about, I think it was the MacBook Air M2, which had the same memory as the M1 MacBook Air, as in 8 gig. But while the 8 gig before was a dual one, this was now single, and so it was actually slower. And this is part of the reason why so many people didn't upgrade from an M1 to an M2 MacBook Air, because, well, apart from the fact that they didn't need to, but secondly, it was actually a downgrade. I just remember that randomly. Not sure how relevant that is, but yeah.
well,
Yeah, sorry,
it
Joe.
means
What else was he saying?
it means the
Oh no, that was it.
CPU can address two. It can address the RAM in twice the speed. So if it's got to write to the RAM in more than one block, it can do blocks. Is that the right
One
word?
block here, one block
Yeah,
there.
it can do that in dual channels. That in theory sounds better. I don't know though that people are using Raspberry Pis in manners that require. I mean, I don't know the workloads that people use. I just use mine for.
Would they benefit from it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
But
see
I
what you
can
mean.
see why they would need that. It would be advantageous for Raspberry Pi to do that in order to keep their prices low, or as low as they are, at least, and their production costs down. It makes sense in the times that we're living in, I guess. So,
And then next, I've got a bunch of releases. So some of these have come from Ubuntu, OMG Ubuntu. Some of them have come from Linuxiac. So, for example, Linux 6.19 has been released by our our benevolent dictator Linus Torvalds. It moves AMD Radeon GPUs to a modern AMD GPU driver, native Vulkan support to Radeon R9. It's in the article there's a lot of the different changes that have been brought in. For example, the DRM color pipeline API brings hardware accelerated HDR. EXT4 gets larger block sizes and performance tweaks. Mainline ROG Ally and Steam Deck support. There's some expansion to laptop and motherboard hardware. And one of the things that I found was kind of a little bit buried in there, but more support for the new Snapdragon X2 Elite ARM laptops, and parallel CPU hot plugging support for RISC-V. So there's quite a bit in here. The one interesting thing is that it's not going to be coming in Ubuntu, because Ubuntu 26.04, when it comes out, the LTS, is going to ship with Linux 7, so we should have all this stuff and more. But if you're on a distro which, I know, like, builds on this thing called Arch. I mean, I've not really heard of it before, but apparently, it exists. You might be able to, get to that newest bleeding edge kernel that he requires for all of his AI workloads.
yeah, you know me.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly, man. Exactly. And yeah, in more release news, KD 6.6, Plasma 6.6 has seen last minute fixes, and 6.7 is going to be coming out soon. So 6.6 will come out next week. But in the article, which is from Phoronix, the Plasma developers also talked about quite a few of the changes that are going to come into 6.7. And again, in the article, there's a whole bunch of things. The thing that I found interesting here was the thing about Samba shares. So I remember having some issues with Samba shares on, not on my server, for which you guys kindly did tech support for me on Roundtable, but it was another test laptop that I had that I was running a KDE based distro. I can't remember which one it was at the time, but anyway, and I was having real issues with the Samba shares, and I thought and I couldn't understand why. That if I, did exactly the same thing in GNOME or Cinnamon, it was working fine. But it turns out that it's actually a thing in KDE. KDE Gear 2604 is improving the process of creating Samba shares for easier file sharing with Windows users or other Linux PCs. The KDE Gear update will now turn on the Samba service for systemd-based distributions as needed, and the hope is to make Samba sharing relatively painless. So I thought that was interesting. Okay, this is my lack of technical knowledge. Why would it only be for systemd-based distributions? Is that a thing?
It's only because
needs
it's
to be?
running like services where it's daemons and services that they have to choose one thing or the other, or they feel they have to, and so they'll go with systemd.
I have to say it. Oh, okay, Leo. The word is daemon.
A daemon, yeah, okay.
Okay.
Too many English people. Sorry.
Anywho, okay.
Well, okay, because you understand.
News, yeah, go ahead.
Systemd is not just like it doesn't just do stuff at startup. It's also the service that is running all of the services. And a daemon is basically something that is sitting, waiting for something else to happen, and then it'll initiate a service or execute a command. You can actually write your own like automatic things to have happen, or you can make timers to wait to start your video card, once it sees a network connection or something like that. A full-featured desktop environment has things going on that it needs services running in order to operate well, which means they've got to choose between one of the available options out there, or it's either that or they've got 100 little bash scripts running in the background, and nowadays that's considered kind of a sloppy way to do software. So that's basically the whole reason.
But fun,
yeah. And it's fun to show off your bash scripts to everybody. So,
ooh, my bash scripts are better than yours. Did they bring all the boys to the yard?
Awesome.
Anyway,
that's our title for this
news.
One.
Yeah, Bill's bash scripts bring the boys to the yard.
Oh no, I didn't expect my name to get involved in it. Excellent.
Okay. Anyway, yeah. Continuing on with release news. Phoronix again, GNOME 50 beta released with stable VRR and GDM improvements. So the link goes through all the different things that are going to be coming up in the GNOME 50 desktop release due out in March. We've already kind of mentioned the full transition to Wayland and being Wayland only, but there's also things around having things around the improvements to the Epiphany browser, some remote desktop things, improvements to Nautilus, which I really hope they do, because Nautilus is just not as good as it used to be. Do you know what I mean?
But I don't want to sound like it's easily switched out for something like Nemo. That's the one good thing about it.
No, yeah. True. Yeah, which is what I do.
Yep.
And yeah, there's a whole bunch of little updates which I thought would be useful to mention. As I said, I think it just amazes me actually how quick they are innovate. Okay, maybe innovating is the wrong word. How quickly they're developing it's like you get one release, it hasn't even gone out to everything, and then the next one comes along, which is good. Everybody likes a project which is, doing stuff and not being stagnant. Looking at UXFC, but at the same time, I just what's the quality assurance thing? Systems like. I mean, are you likely to have more buggy software if you're rushing it out? But are they actually rushing it out? Is it just that time is a flat circle, and I haven't realized, that it's actually been 6 months or 8 months or 9 months, and is it because I've got post sepsis brain fog? Am I becoming demented? I don't know. All of those options are valid, answers. But yeah, it just made me wonder. It just made me think that they're obviously doing quite a lot of work. I do like GNOME. I've got to be honest. But only on specific devices. It's not something I'd use on a desktop. It's something that works much better on a laptop, I think, especially if you've got a touch screen and convertible form factor. I know that might make me a little bit of a yes.
Anything
Yes,
that's only
exactly.
got like one monitor. If you're running multi-monitor, then yeah, GNOME's not my jam.
I've never tried running it on
Yeah,
multi-monitor.
no, I
wonder,
I agree.
because it seems like it would get in the way. But I don't know. I've never tried it. I've only ever used Cinnamon on multi-monitor because it just seems to, it just works. There again.
Yeah. But yeah, so I know that might make me a bit of an oddity in the Mint community for actually not having a problem with GNOME, but yeah, okay. So and then the last piece of release news is LibreOffice 26.2 released with Excel and Markdown support. Again, this is again from OMG Ubuntu, from our friend Joey. LibreOffice 26.2 has been released with multi-use database support, improved Excel clipboard compatibility, and a new x86 64 version 2 hardware baseline for Linux users. It's their first major release, the document foundations of 2026. It doesn't seem to be chasing the AI hype unlike some of the others. It can now import and export Markdown. It can import via the clipboard. The database component is now truly multi-user, so you could have multiple people using on it. I think the one issue that had been a not stumbling block, sorry, an impediment for people taking it, going forward with it, was the kind of compatibility with some of the Excel stuff, and apparently that is improved. Again, stuff in the article if you want to know of more. Part of the reason for me putting this on was because of the fact that LibreOffice is the default office suite for most Linux distributions, and so I thought it was important that it's mentioned. Ironically, though, most recently I've tried using OnlyOffice, which am I right? OnlyOffice used to be SoftMaker, or have I got that wrong?
You'd have to ask Moss.
Okay, fine. Because one of the things that's been mentioned about LibreOffice is that it never took up the kind of ribbon interface that Microsoft Office took on about 10 years ago, or more than 10 years ago. I mean, probably about 15 years ago. While OnlyOffice has, which, if you are used to that particular workflow, is something interesting. If not, then yeah. So that is also there in the releases, and that I believe is enough for my bits of the news.
And if nobody has
anybody's got anything to say,
if nobody has anything else, we'll move on to security and privacy. Joe?
Now, this came across my feed in a couple other locations, so I just wanted to bring it up. The SSH Stalker botnet uses IRC-C2 to control Linux systems via Linux kernel exploits. So it's a botnet, there's a lot of them out there, but it basically searches for SSH on port 22, the standard port. So, and it goes out there, and it's basically a toolkit that's using what is it? SSH Stalker is notable for blending mass compromise automation with a catalog of 16 distinct vulnerabilities impacting the Linux kernel, some going all the way back to 2009. So yeah, it is a part of a rootkit, and they'll do things like install cryptocurrency miners and website grabbers to grab your Amazon Web Services secrets, and just it allows for remote command and execution capabilities. So basically, in the end, what I'm saying is that things like this exist out there, and make sure to keep your stuff updated so that you're not, subject to it. Oh, and quit using standard SSH ports.
Yeah, don't expose port 22 to the internet, for crying out loud. That is a that is a crazy thing to do.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't do it. On your router, your external device, that topmost layer of security that you have there, forward something else,
Or use
and then
WireGuard
just
to get
memorize
into
that
your
port.
network, and then get on to port 22.
Bounce around.
Yeah. That's so. I think it's easy to set up. I mean, it's not that big of a deal.
Don't use standard ports for anything.
No. All right. That's it for security and privacy. Moving on to vibrations from the ether. And we got one here from Londoner. You want to take this, Joe, or you want me to do it? Or it looks like he was...
Oh, yeah, I can do it.
Okay.
This is from Londoner. You guys really have some memory problems. Yes, we do.
It's a little irritated
Just
there.
2 weeks ago in the show notes for episode 477, I mentioned that if you didn't like the new menu in Mint 22.3, you can go back to the old one just by installing the classic menu by Fred CW at, and then there's a link in the show notes. And according to this is not just 99%, but it's 100% the old menu. And Jim, I believe you have used it?
Yeah, on the last show I was talking about these other options I discovered, Cinemenu and another one, and how I wanted to try to recreate the old menu. I had totally forgotten that Londoner had talked about classic menu previously, which is an oversight. And then he's right. Classic menu is indeed the one you want to use if you want the exact old menu back. Although Cinemenu is really cool. It has a lot of customization if you want to be able to change things in different ways. That's one you can recommend. There was another one I found on Reddit. I'm not even sure it has a name, but I downloaded it from the guy's GitHub and dragged the directory over to the appropriate place, and it gave you yet another option. It's kind of similar to classic menu, but there's one or two minor differences. So you do have multiple options for menus if you've upgraded to Mint 22.3, and which includes the newer version of Cinnamon, and you want to get back to that old menu. He's right. Classic menu is the thing if you want it to look just like it used to look in 22.2 before.
I think it would be suicide to not include something like classic menu for something like Mint, honestly, because people do not like being forced onto an entire different workflow. That's just not a thing, especially for Linux people. Yeah.
Especially with the user experience,
Yeah.
When you hit, if you're a keyboard person or a mouse person, either way, when you hit that super key, that thing that pops up, usually on the bottom left of your screen, if you have it set up that way in Cinnamon, if it looks different, that's going to catch your eye immediately.
It is.
And whether the search box is at the top or the bottom, or the system buttons, power off, and log out. Used to be vertical, then they became horizontal. That kind of stuff can drive people crazy, and that's the impetus for these, classic menu and cine menu and other things.
And I can understand it too, because learning a workflow is it's hard coding things into your brain, how to go about using this machine, to get the things done that we want to get done. And when you move something like that around, and some people would probably even take issue with the fact that they have to go back to the classic menu. Just the fact that they have to go back to. I know one thing, when I nuke and pave, and then I put Cine Menu back on. The one cool thing Cine Menu will do, and I'm not sure if the others do it as well, is you can export the settings of it in a JSON, because if you move away from it and then move back to it, it like defaults back to all of the default view and all the default settings and that, and you have to re-import the settings you want, and I can see how that would, if you didn't have that option, then that would be kind of a rough transition for you.
Yeah, when I looked at the new menu, I didn't even think it was that horrible. Once I put the search box back on top and got rid of the black and white, category, that they had changed it to and made it back to full color and some other things, I got it back looking like 80% of the way it used to. I could have lived with it if I had to, and if I had started with that, I just would have thought it was normal and I wouldn't be outraged. But yeah, the thing that outraged me was that if I wanted it to not be changed at all, I couldn't until I, found out about classic menu. So yeah, it's the idea that you're being forced to change is more annoying than the actual change.
So anyway, moving on to check this out, and yet again from Londoner. If you want plasma on Mint, it is easy to do. This is the latest video on YouTube, which even describes how to remove cinnamon, and there's a link in the show notes to this video. Back in the day,
So I did use. Yeah, because I'd mentioned this that back in the day that there used to be a KDE spin of Mint, but that hasn't been the case, and blah blah blah. And I would like to use KDE on Mint. I'd mentioned that in my last wanderings, and so yeah, London put this thing in, which I can attest to works even if you're doing it on LMDE. And so I now do have LMDE KDE running, which kind of makes it just Debian with KDE. And it doesn't matter. The point is, it works.
Now, are
So
you
thanks
getting
for that.
up-to-date KDE Plasma, or is it more of a Kubuntu style KDE Plasma?
So I'm getting whatever's in the Debian repos.
Okay, so it's...
So Debian 13 is relatively recent now, but it's not going to be for a while.
Right.
It's not going to change for a while.
Because I know there is a backports PPA for Kubuntu that you can
Yes, there is.
use, and that will keep you, as far as I'm aware, that keeps you just as up to date as like KDE Neon used to be.
Yeah.
So,
The only thing,
I have to
yeah,
ask-
it won't work on, obviously. You can't add PPAs on Debian, can you?
Right, no.
So you can't have a PPS for backports and whatever. Yeah, go on, Joe.
I have to ask, am I the only one that when I do a fresh install, I also install alternate desktops just in case? Because I've been using Cinnamon for a long time, and there have been plenty of times where it's just completely stopped working, and I needed another way to access everything.
That used to be a thing. I found it less of a thing in recent years, honestly.
I kept doing it also because it was a good way to have a lower memory impact desktop if I were using something like X2Go on another machine. So
Yeah.
it's a habit that I got and then I kept.
Just buy more memory. It's cheap, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, what could possibly go wrong? So actually,
No.
out of interest, Joe. So which two would you? Okay, so you've got Cinnamon. What else would you install?
Oh,
Would
you
install
dove
KDE
dove
or
head first into that
GNOME
one.
or Mate?
Usually mate.
Okay.
But LXQT, I
Okay.
think, is one of the ones that I was installing for a while. But I think my fallback for a long time now has been mate.
Okay.
So
LXQT is an interesting one because it's one of those ones that you look at and and it's kind of, oh yeah, that's kind of cool, but then you don't look at it again for like 3 years, and then you go back to it and it's like they've got their own menu now that's a full featured menu and everything, and
It's interesting that we're mentioning this because, like how I've mentioned that I've been listening to old episodes of OTC to get me off to sleep. So the one I was listening to yesterday was one in which we were talking about LXQT and what was the point of LXQT, because KDE Plasma is actually pretty nimble and pretty light comparatively to KDEs of the past, and so what's the point? And then Leo went off on a thing about how KDE doesn't have, it shouldn't really be thought of as being bloated ever since KDE 5 and definitely with KDE 6, etc., etc. So it's interesting that's come up again, isn't it? As I said, time is a flat circle. Just talk about the same stuff again and again.
I think you've got the concept
I find
of bloat in terms of code, but then you've got there's this whole nother world of bloat in terms of all of the stuff KDE Plasma will do, and people are a little overwhelmed by it, whereas LXQT uses some of the same technologies, but it's a much simpler, much more, I don't want to say watered down because that makes it, but I think it's purposefully
yeah,
less feature rich to give you not necessarily a minimum viable desktop, but something that is a little more
lean one.
more palatable for some people, I think.
if I was looking to completely customize it, then I might consider KDE to use. But since this is just a secondary thing where I'm accessing it every now and again, Mate or LXQT it's going to be perfectly fine. I'm just going to use it and forget it. I don't need to customize it.
Sorry, Jim, you were going to say something?
yeah, I've never had an issue in the last 2+ years where Cinnamon didn't work or let me down in some way, and I ever contemplated for 1 second the idea of switching to another DE on Mint. It's never even occurred to me. Like Joe said, he built a habit of doing that. And on top of that, if that was a thought that occurred to me, in my opinion, Mate and XFCE are completely incompatible with people who are Cinnamon users. You can't use both casually or jump back and forth, in my opinion, because there is a huge difference that divides all the desktop environments in my mind. The ones that have the launcher built into a single press of the super key, like Cinnamon, and according to what I heard, KDE and GNOME also function that way. And then the ones that don't, which includes Mate and XFCE and probably a bunch of others. That is, into my opinion, as a keyboard-focused person, a gigantic divide.
I don't understand the problem. I know exactly what you're talking about, and all you have to do to fix that is to map that button to the Alt F1 key, and that fixes that problem.
Not an XFCE. It doesn't. It is not.
I've been using it for years, and I just map the super key to Alt F1, and it opens the whisker menu every single time. I don't know.
Okay, that's whisker menu. That's different. That's not, the whisker menu is different. You're getting around the problem by using whisker menu, which is
I mean, that's the default menu on XFCE distros for last 5-6 years now. If you install Mint XFCE, you get the whisker menu. If you install Ubuntu, you get the whisker menu. What's another? Manjaro, you get the whisker menu. I mean, I think you have to get rid of that to go back to I know what you're saying, though. The original, just the text-based menu, but then you'd have to go with your mouse to click something to actually start typing after that. Yeah, I don't know.
But here's the thing. If you map that the way you've described, can you also use super plus other keys without that functionality crashing? In other words, if you do that, can you use Super E to open up your default file manager, or Super D to minimize everything? That's the problem and the one time I tried XFCE years ago, you could have one or the other. They don't both work, because Cinnamon, what you're doing is it makes a distinction between press and release of the super key.
Yeah.
Which is the application launcher, versus hold the super key and combine it with another key. On these other distros, if you try to manually map that, there's a crash. It doesn't recognize the difference. So maybe it does for you. You should try it if you're.
I'm gonna have to go look, because I don't remember ever.
When
Go ahead, Joe.
Part of the reason this doesn't come up for me is because when you're remoting into a system, the super key doesn't function the way that you want it to anyway.
Yeah.
Because it's going to default to the host system as opposed to the one you're remoted into.
I absolutely agree, though, that the super key having that functionality it would be a deal breaker. And in the early days of XFCE, it forced me to use something like D menu, which is this very basic text-based menu that comes up on the top of the screen. It's basically made for stuff like i3 or DWM or something like that.
Oh God, I remember installing that now.
DWM was.
There are many. Yeah, there are many other launchers,
Yeah.
But I'm going back to the 90s. Whenever that started in Windows, that's how I built that, muscle memory, and I'm not changing that for the rest of my life. I'm used to hitting what was the Windows key. Yeah. So anyway, Cinnamon has never given me a problem, so I've never been forced to try another one.
Except just a little
when I did try
ropey.
Mate and XFCE. Yeah.
It can't. Okay, so when, and you're really going to have to think back now, but when GNOME 3 first hit people's machines about the same time as Windows 8 was a thing, people were already irritated by Windows 8, and then now we're going to see something like that on the Linux side too. Mint scrambled to make something modern, but keep with, how was it described, the traditional desktop paradigm. I think they used a different word. And so Cinnamon was kind of brought out, and it had its problems at first. I think Cinnamon and Mate kind of came around about the same time, and Cinnamon was kind of taking the GNOME 3 technologies and moving forward with it, and then Mate was sort of offered as a way to keep with the GNOME 2 sort of paradigm. And then they've both sort of evolved from there. And at first it was a little ropey, honestly, but it was like anything else, when you're riding the lightning with these projects, you're gonna get the fleas with the dog, as my dad would say.
Like with Cinnamon, in regards to this machine right here that I'm using, it's got the 2 graphics cards. It's got the Intel, and then it's got the NVIDIA mobile graphics. This is the laptop. And there were a lot of problems where it would just end up in fallback mode over and over again before the drivers got updated that allowed it to easily switch back and forth between the two. So I would force it to use the NVIDIA, and then because I was forcing it to use the NVIDIA, Cinnamon decided that it just couldn't access it and would go into fallback mode. And it ran very, very poorly in fallback to the point where it was easier for me to switch over to Mate and then fix whatever issues I was having and then switch back.
And that's another thing. Cinnamon has always really heavily depended on hardware acceleration, all the way from the beginning. And it was... Some desktop environments make it less a thing, or it's more transparent. But you always knew when Cinnamon was not giving you hardware. Well, first of all, it would tell you that it was going to fallback mode, but then you would have a noticeable difference in performance because of it. Nowadays, though, I think the overall story about hardware acceleration has improved to the point where we just don't notice those kind of things on anything anymore, especially if you're using all Intel or all AMD, whatever, But even with NVIDIA cards, we've got a higher expectation for these things. Anyway, yeah, the link to the YouTube video is in the show notes, which are linked in the show description. Moving on, housekeeping and announcements. Thank you for listening to this episode of mintCast. If you see something you think we should be talking about, tell us. Send us email, mintcast@mintcast.org. Join us live on YouTube. Post at the mintcast subreddit. Chat with us on Discord and Telegram. Or post directly at... that needs to come out. That's not a thing anymore. Next episode will be 2 p.m. U.S. Central Time on Sunday, March 1st, 2026. There's a link in the show notes to get that converted to your time zone. Next Saturday, we will host a roundtable live stream. Please come and join us using Discord voice channel at 2 p.m. U.S. Central Time on February 21st, 2026. And there's also a link in the show notes to get that converted to your time zone. Live stream information is at mintcast.org/livestream. Wrapping up, Joe.
Well, if you like the sound of my voice, I am on a couple other podcasts. I'm on the Linux Link Tech Show, which is at tllts.org. I'm on the Linux Lugcast, which is at linuxlugcast.com. You can send me an email directly, jb@mintcast.org, or you can buy me a coffee on Ko-fi. Link in the show notes.
Moss couldn't be with us today, but you can reach him at Full Circle Weekly News. He's Moss at bodhilinux.com. His Mastodon is at Zyvla at hosttux.social, and he is occasionally on Hacker Public Radio. You can email me. I'm Bill at mintcast.org. I'm Bill_H on that there Discord, as well as at WCHauser3 at fostodon.org on Mastodon. Also, check out the other show I'm on, Linux OTC, with Eric and Majid. Majid?
Okay, so you can get me on, you can email me at drmajid@mintcast.org. I'm Atypical Doctor on Mastodon, Atypical Doctor Podcast. I'm on the podcast Linux OTC with Eric and Bill, and I'm also on Distro Hoppers Digest with Dale. We recorded an episode last week, so hopefully that should be coming out soon. Eric couldn't be with us today. You can get him at eric@mintcast.org. Similarly, Charles couldn't be with us today either. You can get him at charles@mintcast.org or Mr. PDX on Discord. Jim?
You can contact me at jim@mintcast.org. I go by GNU2Linux on Discord, and I have a few episodes of my own podcast on YouTube as The Linux Shortcut.
Before we leave, we want to make sure to acknowledge some of the people who make mintCast possible. I do the audio editing, and I host the server which runs our website maintenance, and the Nextcloud server in which we host our show notes and raw audio. Nothing like tooting your own horn. Archive.org for hosting our audio files, Hobstar for our logo, initRD for our animated Discord logo, Londoner for our time syncs and various other contributions. Last but not least, the Linux Mint development team for the distro we love to talk about. Thanks, Clem.
Thanks, Clem.
Thanks, Clem.
And Cole.
And Co.